Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court appointed and private, marriage counseling, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Counseling and Therapy Services at 301-325-1550 or our website, lifecoachdanamzalak.com. Today, I'm very excited to have at our podcast on season 2, episode 2, a very special guest, Kevin Roth. Just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Kev, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Well, the brief bio of my 64 years of life is I am a musician and an artist. I have recorded many albums. A lot of people will remember me for singing the theme to the hit PBS show called Shining Time Station, which is Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I've got, I think it's almost close to 50 records now, and you can find all that on Amazon or Kevin Roth, Roth music. But in 2000, I think it was 2015, 16, totally out of the blue, I was diagnosed with stage 3 melanoma and given about 2 years to live. So that was, I guess, what, 5, 6 years ago. And that completely changed my life, as you can imagine. I didn't believe them, and I was ended up being right. But it sent me down sort of the rabbit hole, emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually, to question what was my life about and what was important to me. And I decided when a year came and went, and there were no signs of the cancer ever returning, I moved to San Diego, California from Kansas.
Ooh.
Started to live a life that I created, that I wanted to live, because I realized that life is not a dress rehearsal, right? And then, right before COVID hit, I became a life coach and began to teach people what I had taught myself and learned through spiritual and psychological wisdom. And I also play a musical instrument, which I'm known for, called the dulcimer, which is a beautiful lap folk instrument. And I created something called dulcimer meditation, where people who are musical or non-musical can actually use music for 3 to 5 minutes at a time and get clarity about their life by tapping into their subconscious, which is something you'd be very interested in
Yeah.
being in that field. And so that's what I do now. I'm a life coach. I'm a musician, a recording artist, and I'm currently writing a book and creating a new album. And when all the restrictions are lifted, we'll go out there and uh, work with people in workshops and residencies. Right now, I do all my coaching one-to-one with on Zoom. And I also, before I forget, I on my website, which is kevinroth.org, that's my coaching site, there's actually a free breathing exercise and stress buster exercise that I think it's not even more than 4 minutes, I think, which people can go to and just, especially right before the holidays, when you're right around family and those buttons get pushed, you can go to the kevinroth.org and click on that free video to learn a real simple breathing technique, and it has a little beautiful dulce meditation in it. So that's me and my commercials for the day.
Okay, good. The Dulce meditation, is it like binaural sound? Is it something similar or that triggers the sound that triggers the subconscious mind, etc.?
Well, you know, this is what the dulcimer sounds like. I'll just play a little bit of it for you. It's So it's very meditative. So
Yes.
what happens is that there's things called binaural beats, which this does not have.
Okay.
What this does is, if, as an example, if you're going to sit down and if you're feeling stressed about what you need to get done, let's say you have a lot of shopping you need to do and you don't have a lot of time and the kids are pulling at you. If you were to sit down and to write out a list of things, you're going to feel a certain sense of agitation.
Right.
when you play a musical instrument, even extremely simple, like people who don't even know how to play music can play the dulcimer. I teach that. It's just a simple, it's taught in elementary schools, really. The music acts as a buffer because the mind suddenly has something to go with instead of just the point of interest. Because the mind loves to argue.
Mhm.
The mind is never quiet. It's like a child. I used to be very upset with my mind. Now I just, it's like a little kid to me. I kiss it, make it all better, and it goes away.
Mhm.
So the music lullabies the mind. And then what you're able to do is to ask in a gentle way, what should I do with this situation? If you're feeling stuck or you have certain problems, you can ask sort of the universe, so to speak, what should I do about this situation? And as you gently play the dulcimer, what happens is the real answer comes. Now, what's interesting about this is it works for everybody.
Okay.
The other interesting thing is sometimes answers come that you don't expect. So, as an example, one day I was asking what I should do with a particular situation. I had a bunch of bills and all kinds of things that I didn't want to deal with. And what came to me while I was playing the dulcimer was go shopping, go food shopping, which I didn't need to do, but I went. And by the time I got back, all the anxiety, fear, and problems were gone. I knew exactly what to pay. I knew exactly what not to pay, what to do, and the whole thing was sort of tripped up. So, they say change the way you look at things and the things you look at. Change.
Mhm.
That's what the Dulce meditation does. And one of the things that I teach in my coaching practice is, as an example, if you're really upset about something and the phone rings and it's someone you haven't heard from in a long time, and you say, hey, how you doing? Oh, that's great. Where you been? What happened to that major thing that was about to end your life?
Disappeared for
It
that
disappeared.
moment, for that given moment.
Yes. So everything is the mind. And what's interesting, if you look at things like quantum physics, we don't have a mind. If you open up a brain, you can't find a mind. Where's the mind, right? It's
Mhm.
like they say, well, where's the universe? How big is the universe? Universe keeps expanding. So everything you have to look at for the truth of what it is. So that's a long way of saying that there is a way that you don't have to be upset or stressed out or feel stuck if you can find a quiet way to reflect. The answer, the silent voice inside your head, it will always tell you what you need to know.
Interesting. Now, when it comes to this music, that the dolce, is that
Dulcimer.
dulcimer? Do you have to also add some kind of positive affirmation so the brain can absorb that message, or is just the music itself that will soothe your mind, that will de-stress you? Is there something else that have to be added to the mix?
No, because less is more. All you need to do is play a little bit and ask.
Okay.
The hard thing is listening.
Hmm. Correct.
That's all. It's so simple. The best things in life are extremely simple.
But we think that when it's too simple, there's a catch, and that's the problem. And this is what our mind is being trained. Like, for example, when we were in high school, Kevin, a while back, when we had the multiple choice question, when we saw the answer, we said, no, it cannot be that easy. And then we start second guessing ourselves. We start questioning ourselves in everything, that all the lesson that we've learned, etc. And we keep bringing this with us as being in adulthood. So how do you go around rebooting the mind and thinking differently?
It's through experience because I know that when I play the dulcimer or it could be done on the guitar or really anything. It's really just the method that I teach. Um, I experience more peace and joy. So there's a thing that I have there's a course actually I created. It's on teachable.com about creating your life the way you want it to be. Once I say in that course, once you replace what doesn't work with what does work, you don't go back to what doesn't work. So the things that come up that make us second guess thing mostly is fear,
Mhm.
which is false evidence appearing real.
Correct.
Um, and when people get to a certain age, most of my clients are 50 years and older. Some are doctors, medical doctors, some are clergy, some are psychologists, and some are professionals, some are just housewives. My clients are a real range of people, but they all come with one big thing. They come, well, really two big things. One, well, the lesser of the big things is that their dreams mostly have been squashed because of the role that they play, mother, father, boss, all these, parents, the whole thing. But who they really are, what they really love and what they really want to do, it got sidetracked. So now they're at a point in their life when they want to do what they want to do and be who they really are instead of, being the professor or the
Doctor,
executive. Yeah. But the one thing that everyone has in common, no matter where you live in the world, is I call the longing. When we're born, and you would know this better than I, there's a certain age, and I don't know if it's the age of 3 or 4, where we start to develop an ego.
mhm.
Uh, but before that point, we are left in some, for I don't know, you could call it sort of a spiritual kind of bliss. It's kind of like being, stoned from the age of, babyhood till the ego comes.
Okay.
And we know that that's home. We don't have, I'm Dan, I'm Kevin, this is mine, no, this is mine, none of that.
Mhm.
But we adopt those things as we get older. And then when we get really, really, really old, we go back to that child innocence right before we die. That's why they say, what's twice a man, no, twice a child, once a man.
Mhm.
So people spend our whole lives for this longing. They're longing for home. They're longing for that sense of who am I?
Okay.
And that's in your heart. So if you're lucky enough to do what you love, like you do and I do, that's your purpose-driven life. And that's the thing I love about coaching is it brings people to their sense of themselves and gives permission that you don't have to have that multiple choice thing. It's like, well, if I do this, I'm going to be screwed up. If I do that, oh, that's going to get me in trouble. You say, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. I need a game plan on how to do it. And then there is no multiple choice. I'm out of school. I'm an adult now. I can follow what I love to do.
But human nature is always based on second guessing ourselves for everything that
Yeah.
we do. We wonder if we made the right choice in a spouse. If we wonder if we made the right choice in as a career, and that's why like now we see a lot of people that at the age of 50 they feel no fulfillment in what they do in their lives, and they change career, or they start saying, well, I'm too old to change now I'm stuck with what I'm doing and I'm miserable in what I'm doing. And now when you see the great resignation, well, now it is called the great reevaluation, where
Mhm.
everyone now are looking at their lives, they're looking at their jobs, and they're saying, is that my mission? Is that my purpose? Is that something that I want to do for the rest of my life before I lay down in a bed and physically disappear?
Right.
So, what when it comes to bringing back some self-awareness in people through your coaching services, um, how can you take away that self-critics that they do on themselves, to let them know, you know what, it's only your brain that's constructing this kind of negative messages. We have to kind of look at it as, okay, you've done that, don't live your life with regret, start making the changes now before you regret when you are on the deathbed.
Right. Right. So what I do, the first thing I do is I ask my client, who are you? What are your dreams? What does little Dan, the child, have to do with the adult Dan?
Mhm.
What does Kevin want to do? We know that Kevin has to make a living and Kevin has to pay taxes and Kevin has to do this. But if all of that was off the table, what would Kevin be doing? Would you be climbing mountains, or would you become a doctor? What would you want to do? And once they open up and they express uh, who they are in a safe environment, which means that I allow them to be exactly who they are, then we start to discuss how we can start. um, molding that life. It's called a role to soul. Like, there's a wonderful book by Connie Zwig about it, where, we have these roles in our life. But what does our soul want? And then I teach people how to get that. But part of that process is decluttering the I'm no good, I'm hard on myself, I don't deserve this, I'm in a relationship. Yeah, it's not great, but I've got a roof over my head. So we think that staying where we are in difficult places is easier than changing.
Correct.
And the truth is that it's not. It's harder to stay where you are in an unhappy place than to change. All you need to do is to have someone at your back saying, I'm there with you and we're going to change this together. I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to give you the tools to help you do that. And that's my approach in coaching. But it's not just psychological. I always include a spiritual element to it. And I don't care what religion you follow, because to me they're all the same.
Mhm.
When people ask me what's my religion, I say it's the same as God's. So I think that that's important because everything starts with that longing to be home.
And you mentioned the word fear, which is the false evidence appearing real,
Mm.
which most people stop on their track because they're afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of not knowing if whatever they decide to do based on their passion, whatever it is, because they're very unhappy where they are at this moment, they're afraid that if they make that choice, it may result in something even worse than what they are right now. And that's what stops people from reaching their dreams, if you would call that. So, how do you go around that fear?
Well, what I do is I use dulcimer meditation. So I'm going to be moving in the next couple weeks, and there were several choices to go with. One choice, the choice that I ended up with, was a place that I would have never picked. But when I did my dulcimer meditation of saying, should I move a mile from here to this other place in an area I know, or should I move to this other place by the mountains in California, which I don't know, I was conflicted, and it brought up a bunch of fear, like, well, one is more expensive, and well, it's going to cost you more to move on and on and on. And I sat and I did dulcimer meditation, and I asked, what feels good? What feels peaceful?
Okay.
And the mountains came. And then I asked, but there, but what do I do about this, and what do I do about that? And again, the mountains came. So what I did is I drove up to that area,
Mhm.
and as soon as I went into that area,
You knew.
I knew. I knew. Logically, it didn't make any sense. When I moved from Kansas to San Diego, I was almost broke from all the medical costs and everything like that. So you don't want to move to San Diego if you're broke.
Oh, no.
But I did, because my gut said that is where you will thrive. That's where your heart belongs. And I did. I went from basically surviving to thriving. So you need to trust that inner voice and go gentle. Once you start throwing in that mental stuff of, well, I can't because, that's your mind.
Mhm.
Listen to your heart, find what your heart wants, and then look at it logically and say, okay, I'd like to live in California if I'm living in Iowa and it's snowing right now, but I don't know that I can afford to. But my heart says California, so maybe you live in a one bedroom. You don't buy a house in California, which right now is a ridiculous thing to do anyway.
Crazy.
But you can do it. I did it.
Mhm.
It whatever the heart really wants, you get it. If you're looking to date somebody, or when you meet someone, the first thing comes up for a lot of people is, oh, I don't know, they're out of my league. But man, when you see that person that you want, there ain't no stopping. You become Rocky, right?
Yes.
you go after it. You go, no, 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 no. They say, well, I don't know if I want to go out on a date. Don't skip the whole date. Let's just go get married. I mean, you come up with stuff because there's a knowing.
Wow. And the fact of this known thing, I mean, you would probably say, well, before you take a major step in your life, take calculated risk, because obviously you just will not want to go blindly and put yourself in harm's way. So those calculated risks per se, Kevin, isn't that will allow the brain to calculate too much on that risk and start questioning themselves, trying to anticipate, predict, assume that if they make this choice, this is what's going to be rendering the result. So again, like in business or in when you go into starting your own company, you have to take calculated risk. You're not going to go into something that you're completely unaware of. You have to have some knowledge. So does that hinders the progress of people?
I think that it's a balance. I mean, if I wanted to save a lot of money, I could get an apartment for $400 somewhere in the Midwest. That's a calculated non-risk. I know what it is. I know what I'm going to pay. I'm paying $1,400 now. Okay, so I could pay $400 and live in Iowa. I don't want to live in Iowa. My heart isn't in Iowa. I've given concerts there. It's actually quite a beautiful state, but I want to be in California. So I balance everything out with what does my heart want, and then I look at it with the risks. And when risks present themselves, I say, is this worth the risk? Or maybe I don't have to make the entire decision today, but I can take the next step and looking at it. When I moved to California, everyone said you will never find an apartment for $1,000 ever. You just can't do it.
I would somewhat agree with that.
Well, I did. I found one because my heart knew it was waiting for me. Life is sort of like a dream. You kind of have to step into it.
Yes.
And the way to eliminate the fears and the calculations and all the mind stuff, the way I do it and the way I teach it is through the dulcimer meditation or through a process of thinking. Some people don't want to play an instrument, and then I teach the same kind of thing through a process of thinking. I call it
Being okay.
being, which is where you can sit down with a cup of coffee, no cell phones, no computers, no noise, and just be. Very difficult for people to do that.
Oh,
Just be.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Just be. Yeah.
And when it comes to, because again, human nature is based on instant gratification, Kevin. So your meditation, how long does can people start seeing results? How long can people say, you know what, I've done that for 2 3 weeks, nothing really changed, or wow, I've seen a drastic difference on my perception, on how I see my life, how I see my career, how I see my relationship, etc. So in average, how long does it take?
I kid you not, immediately. I'm with you on Zoom when we do the meditation together. And I say, let's get the question, let's ask it inside and tell me what comes. When you do it with a certain breathing exercise that I teach, if you play the dulcimer or if you don't, I've never had someone say, I'm not getting anything.
Okay.
Never. I've never had it. So it comes immediately.
Because okay, and that feeling, does that, do people like suddenly tell you, hey Kevin, I want to go and transition now to another stage in my life because of this meditation, and now I'm ready to take whatever risk necessary to be able to follow my heart and not just follow financials or anything else to say, oh, this is too expensive, or come up with excuses to not move forward. So do you kind of like hold their hands and help them through this process? We tell them, okay, the next stage is this. Then after that, you need to do this. How does that work after they start
I,
feeling changes?
I do that. I have a rather close relationship with my clients in the sense that I can see them on Zoom, but I also watch them and guide them. I recently had a client that was about to make a move that, I don't ever tell people what to do,
Okay.
but if she had done what she was going to do, I'm pretty sure she would have really uh, put a lot of strain on her marriage.
I see. Okay.
So I said to her, you need to think about it this way because this could affect your marriage. And then we look at why this person wanted to do that. And that goes back to childhood, never getting your needs met. And, in this particular situation, I want it, I want it, I want it, I want it. Give it to me, give it to me. And I told her, you already have it. You've got it. You're an adult now. You don't have to listen to the little
Yes.
child. You have it. You don't need to want it. You've got it. But you're in a relationship. So let's talk about your relationship. So it's much like psychology in the way. And then, of course, she contacted me back and she said, "Thank God we talked about that because you were absolutely right." So even though I can guide you towards a thing, I'm also there to reflect back to you what you're doing so that you can look at it a little bit differently. Like, yeah, you can do this thing, but you're going to be away from your husband for 7, 8 months. That's a separation.
Yes.
Okay. This isn't Zoom or we'll talk on the phone. There's another human being on the other end of it. How does he feel about this? What if it doesn't work? And that's a long time. There are people in marriages that travel all the time and they've worked it out, but and she could probably, and they did work it out, but that's what I do. So, and she uses Dulce meditation,
She does okay.
and she was reflecting on it, and she said, boy, I'm glad you stopped me and showed that side to me so that I know I'm going to do it a different way.
Good. Well, that's actually very inspiring in terms of like you seeing the changes in people, especially after they come to you and all, and then they realize that, you know what, if I would have not used Kevin's approach, I would not see the changes that I'm seeing today. So in a way, this is kind of like very enlightening.
Yeah, I set goals with clients. So if a client wants to lose weight, I say, okay, so during the next 3 months, these are the goals we're going to accomplish. Then we work on those goals.
Okay.
And I think well, I know that that's the reason that people constantly re-sign with me.
Yes.
I've had clients with me for a couple of years because they see results. Without results, it's not good. But the results come in your own knowing that what you're doing is the right thing, not just for your head, but for your heart.
Beautiful. If any of our listeners wants to be able to get in touch with you, Kevin, you said that your website is kevinroth.org,
Yeah,
and on the Facebook is Kevin Roth.
I think so. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And then they could go and download whatever music you have done, or this is something
yeah.
completely separate in terms of like your coaching services.
Yeah, there is an album called Dulce Meditation, but the coaching services is different than the music services, although I do teach the dulcimer and I sell the dulcimers. And then if they want to talk to me, because I do a free 30-minute consultation to see
Beautiful.
if they want to become a client, there's just a form on my website, a real simple one you fill out. And if that's not appropriate for us to work together at that time, there's a thing called kevinroth.teachable.com. It's an 8-module course that people can take, but it's better to work one-on-one, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's more personal because again, when you're teaching something, you're not really talking to that person in particular, but when you're one-on-one, you're addressing their problem in a very customized way versus
Yeah.
like something that is more general. Well, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. I do appreciate you, Kevin, for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us. Thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible story. We hope you have all enjoyed today's episode, and I'm very excited about the many upcoming guests we have scheduled for season 2 of Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one you listened to today. Now, here are a few concluding words of wisdom. Dreams do not work unless you do. Therefore, the distance between your dreams and reality is called affirmative action. And for that to happen, you must believe in yourself and push limits so you could conquer all your goals and achieve happiness. The laws of attraction stipulates thoughts become things. But without adding action and belief into the equation, there will be no great things to experience. Start making the changes today so you can see the light tomorrow. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.